Good afternoon, second years. I hope all of you are doing well. I hope all of you are hale and hearty. I hope all your midterm exams went smoothly, and I hope that you're all well cocooned in your houses and you're taking precautionary measures against the onset of the virus. While we're all battling with the virus in our own ways, remember this is not reason enough to inhibit ourselves from learning. We will continue to learn, to understand, and to raise questions through these online portals, wherein I'll be regularly sharing my videos with you. Today marks our first lecture online, and remember, after having watched this video, please comment, add on to the lecture, raise questions if you haven't understood anything, or perhaps indulge in a brainstorming discursive session. But remember, your comments will amount to your attendance today. Today we'll be starting with Lord Byron, and the poem in the syllabus, as you're all well aware, is Don Juan. Let's begin. Please grab your pens and pencils, do the needful, consider this as a live lecture because I will not be repeating myself in class, of course, unless there's a query. So, among all the romantic poets in your syllabus and otherwise, Byron is the only one who knows how to laugh and how to make you laugh. The use of wit, of humor, which is unknown to almost all the romantic contemporaries, is a very strong forte of Byron. Don Juan, which is a poem in your syllabus, is a poem in which Byron goes on to attack the government, the election system, the elite luncheons and dinner parties, the evils of this church, the vanity of the English society. However, not once in his critique does Byron sound pungent and sharp. Byron does all this in a very humorous and light tone. And here is when you can draw a parallel between Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock and Don Juan by Byron. Even in Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock, there was a very sharp critique on the English society underneath the mock epic, and the readers were expected to grasp that pungent tone. However, in Don Juan, Byron expects the readers to laugh along with him at the vanities of the English society and not take it too seriously. Now, however, as literature scholars and as readers, we are expected to question if English society was in fact degenerate and corrupt, if in fact it was all outward glitter and no substance at all. And this is a question we will be battling with throughout our reading of Don Juan, and this is a question that will also be validated by P.B. Shelley when we'll be reading him next, because P.B. Shelley goes on to claim that the tyranny and oppression of the church, of the state, of the government is what keeps an individual from attaining perfect happiness, from attaining utopia, from attaining an idyllic state. Now remember, in my introductory lecture of Romanticism, I told you that there are 6 major romantic poets. Namely, and you know this, please repeat after me: Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Byron, Shelley, and William Blake, of course, was added belatedly. Now when they can be further categorized. William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge are read under one category, whereas Keats, Shelley and Byron are read under a different category. Reason being, their works form a new beginning. They mark a new beginning to a new English tradition, and their poems appeared after the poems of their predecessors had passed and they were evading. Predecessors namely Wordsworth and Coleridge. Now let's probe a little bit into Byron's personal life. His mother did not particularly have a very significant role to play. However, he was pretty close to his father, but he eventually became a dissipated spendthrift, and then his father had to elope to France because he had to evade a lot of his creditors. Now at his 11th year, Byron inherited one of the oldest houses of England, because one of his maternal grand uncle died, and because of his Byron had a social status. He was famous for his Byronic heroes. He was writing pseudo-heroic poetry. He was very generous by heart, and he was also singularly handsome. So on account of all these, Many a young men and foolish women were naturally falling for him, and generous as he was also leading them on. He was led by affection. The only hint of pathos that we know in Byron's life is owing to his lameness. He was lame because of his leg. He had a physical deformity, and he had a deformed foot. Byron differs from the rest of the contemporaries in his use and power of wit. And this use of wit emerges largely from his disbelief in imagination. He always places wit above imagination. He believes that reality is very different from dreams. He believes that the refined fancy ideas that the rest of the romantic poets are proposing are rather ridiculous, and they are not practically applicable. And such a kind of rebellion, such a kind of viewpoint emerges from the society that he inhabited. The society he inhabited was a very high profile, well-bred society, and such a viewpoint was a mere rebellion to the kind of ideals that the society wanted him to subscribe to. Now, I also told you that Byron lived at the time of Regency, and we have already spoken much about the time of Regency, who ruled, and what were the characteristics. So we are already aware that in the time of Regency, everyone was giving into pleasures and hedonism, because it was a period of malice, of madness, of mockery. And at such a point in time, Byron was, his intelligence and his emotions, they were at a constant battle with one another. While if one side of him believed that one should give in to the wild pursuits and wild fancies, the other side constantly prompted him to mend his way, or the other side told him that such a wild pursuit and wild dream and passions could not be realized. Not alone that, his emotions were also battling with one another, because he was constantly oscillating between hatred and love, between admiration and contempt. So in the uncertainty of his temperament, in the uncertainty of his emotions, Byron is very true to his age. Remember, I told you that poetry is a spontaneous overflow of emotion, and in the age of Romanticism, God as the center was replaced with man as the center, and one should give in to his own fancies, imaginations, and what his heart basically says. So in his uncertainty of temperament and his constant wavering and oscillating between his emotions, he is very true to his age. He is a true child of Romanticism. Another way in which he differs from the rest of his contemporaries is his complex character. So far, Byron has written poems which are a very clear black and white. With the arrival of Don Juan, the single point of view is replaced by a very complex point of view. A black and white is replaced by grey, and he proposes to you a whole array of complex emotions. So while the other contemporaries at the time are following a singular point of view, they are following a single approach to life, they have a single principle by which they formulate their characters. Byron follows his own wayward and ever-changing emotions. Though Byron abandoned the romantic view of imagination, and he did away with all the things that romantic poets were associated with, and he adopted a very realistic art and realistic viewpoint, he did not do away with all the themes altogether. He stuck to two major themes which have a very recurring appearance in his poems, one being the theme of love and the second being the theme of nature. I'll call it a day. Let's end the lecture here, and I will pick up where I left today. I hope you all enjoyed listening to the video as much as I did making it. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.